February 2nd, 1959. Somewhere deep in the Ural Mountains of Soviet Russia, 9 experienced hikers are huddled inside a tent, weathering a brutal winter storm. They are not beginners. They are not unprepared. These are trained mountaineers, veteran skiers, students at one of the finest technical universities in the Soviet Union. They have done this before, but they will never be seen alive again. Their tent was found slashed open from the inside. Their bodies were scattered across the mountain, some missing eyes. One had no tongue. Some were nearly naked in temperatures of -40 degrees. And the Soviet government classified the investigation for 30 years. This is the Dyatlov Pass Incident, and after 65 years, we may finally know what happened. January 23rd, 1959. 10 students and graduates from the Ural Polytechnic Institute set off on what should have been an extraordinary, but entirely survivable, winter expedition. Their leader was a 23-year-old engineering student named Igor Dyatlov. He was the kind of person who made others feel safe in dangerous places, experienced, calm, meticulous, the kind of person you'd want next to you on a mountain. Their goal, to reach a peak called Gora Otorten, about 350 kilometers north of their starting point in Sverdlovsk. The route was graded Category 3, the most dangerous classification in Soviet mountaineering. But this group had done Category 3 before. They weren't intimidated. 5 days into the journey, one member, a student named Yuri Yudin, had to head back. A flare-up of sciatica and joint pain made continuing impossible. He said goodbye to his friends at a small outpost and headed home. He would never see them again. He would also go on to spend the rest of his life, until his death in 2013, trying to find out what had happened to them. The 9 who remained pressed on. They had agreed to send a telegram back to their sports club by February 20th. When the 20th came and went, without a word, a search party was dispatched. What they found would haunt Soviet Russia for generations. February 26th, 1959. A student search team, made up of volunteers from the same university, reached the eastern slope of a mountain called Kholat Shachel. In the local Mansi language, Kholat Shachel means dead mountain. They found the tent. It was partially collapsed, buried in snow, but it had been cut open, not from the outside, but from the inside. Someone had used a knife to slash through the tent wall to get out. Inside the tent, their food, their supplies, their winter gear, a flask of vodka untouched, even Igor Dyatlov's camera, sitting right there, abandoned. They had left everything behind and ran out into -40-degree weather, barefoot, or wearing a single sock, in the dark. The footprints in the snow showed they had walked, not sprinted, down the mountain slope toward the tree line, as if they were calm, or in shock, or following someone's orders. Over the next several days, the search team found the first 5 bodies. 2 of them, Yuri Krivonishenko and Yuri Doroshenko, were found beneath a large cedar tree, 3 kilometers from the tent. They had built a small fire. Their hands were burned, as if they had tried to climb the tree, possibly to look for something or to get a signal. They had died of hypothermia. But then came the 4 bodies found in May, when the snow finally melted enough to reveal a ravine nearby. And these were different. 2 of them had fractured ribs, The kind of damage consistent with a car crash, not a fall. One had a severe skull fracture, no external wounds, no bruising on the skin. The force had come from within, or from something so powerful it left no surface marks. One of the women, Lyudmila Dubinina, had no tongue, and 2 of the 4 had no eyes. The Soviet investigation concluded in May 1959. Their official finding: the hikers had been killed by, and I'm quoting directly here, a compelling natural force. And then they classified the files for 30 years. Over the decades, dozens of theories have been proposed to explain what happened on Dead Mountain that night. Some are rational, some are terrifying, and one, the most recent, might actually be true. Let's go through them. Theory 1. The Yeti. The earliest and most dramatic theory: the group was attacked by a creature. The Soviet Union had its own version of Bigfoot, called the Yeti, or the Snowman. Sightings had been reported in the Urals for generations by the indigenous Mansi people. The internal injuries, the kind that left no external marks, seemed to some like the work of something with inhuman strength. The missing tongue and eyes added a nightmarish quality that felt almost ritualistic. But here's the problem. There were no tracks, no animal signs whatsoever, no fur, no scat, nothing. And the autopsy results were inconsistent with an animal attack. A creature strong enough to shatter ribs without leaving surface wounds would have left traces. Most researchers dismiss this one. Theory 2. Soviet military cover-up. This one has more teeth. Some of the hikers' clothing was found to have been contaminated with low-level radiation. Witnesses reported seeing glowing orange spheres in the sky above the area on the night the hikers died. And the lead investigator, a police officer named Lev Ivanov, later admitted in 1990 that he had been ordered by high-ranking Soviet officials to dismiss reports of the spheres. There's a plausible explanation for the radiation. A nuclear disaster called the Kishtim Incident had occurred just 2 years earlier, not far from the pass. 2 members of the group had lived in the affected zone or helped with cleanup. Their clothing could have carried trace contamination from before the trip even began. But the classified files, the missing documents when the archives were finally opened in the 1990s, the gag order on the flying spheres, even if the government didn't cause the deaths, it seems like they were hiding something. Theory 3. Infrasound, the invisible terror. Here's a theory that sounds like science fiction, but isn't. Infrasound is sound below the threshold of human hearing. You can't hear it, but your body can feel it. At certain frequencies, infrasound is known to cause extreme anxiety, disorientation, and even hallucinations. Some researchers believe that the specific geography of the Dyatlov Pass, the way the wind channels through the mountain ridges, could generate infrasound that caused the group to panic and flee their tent in a state of total psychological terror. It would explain why experienced hikers abandoned all their gear and ran into the freezing dark. It would explain why they appeared calm in their footprints. Infrasound panic doesn't always look like running. But it doesn't explain the internal injuries or the missing organs. In 2023, researchers put forward a new theory that connects several of the strangest pieces of evidence. The theory: the hikers were killed by a nitric acid fog, a toxic cloud produced by the failed launch of a Soviet R-12 ballistic missile in the area. Nitric acid, used as rocket propellant, can cause confusion, burning pain, and severe respiratory damage if inhaled. This would explain the glowing orange objects in the sky, a rocket in distress. It would explain why the group fled in terror despite having shelter. It could explain the internal damage, acid exposure, not blunt force. And it would absolutely explain why the Soviet government classified everything. A secret weapons test that killed 9 university students, that's not something you put in the newspaper. Theory 5. The slab avalanche. The official answer. The theory that has gained the most scientific support, and the one that Russia officially adopted after reopening the case in 2019, is the slab avalanche. Here's how it works. When the group dug out a hollow in the slope to pitch their tent, they unknowingly destabilized the snowpack above them. Several hours after they fell asleep, a slab of snow, large, dense, and fast-moving, broke free and slid directly onto the tent. Scientists from 2 Swiss universities simulated this exact scenario in 2021 and found that a slab avalanche would cause the precise internal injuries observed in 4 of the victims: broken ribs, skull fractures. Without leaving surface wounds on the skin, the pattern matched crash test dummies hit at the same angle and speed. In 2022, 2 mountain guides returned to the exact pass in similar weather conditions. They discovered evidence of slab avalanches on the very slopes above where the tent had been pitched. The avalanches disappeared within an hour under fresh snowfall. The original rescue team, arriving 26 days later, would have found no trace. It explains why the hikers cut the tent from the inside. They were partially buried and had to slash their way out. It explains the panic, the bare feet, the abandonment of gear. When you're half crushed in the dark with snow collapsing on you, you don't stop to put your boots on. But it doesn't explain everything. Why were some found naked? Paradoxical undressing, a known phenomenon in late-stage hypothermia where victims feel burning hot, is the accepted explanation. The missing tongue and eyes. Most scientists believe wildlife scavenged the bodies in the ravine over the weeks they lay undiscovered. The radiation? Likely contaminated clothing from before the trip. The glowing spheres. Unrelated Soviet missile tests in the region, common at the time. When you line it all up, it fits. Imperfectly, but it fits. So here's where I land on this. I think the slab avalanche theory is the most likely explanation for the deaths. The science is solid. The simulation matches the injuries. The expeditions to the pass confirmed avalanches occur there. And, frankly, nature doesn't need to be mysterious to be devastating. But I also think the Soviet government behaved suspiciously, classifying an outdoor accident for 30 years, ordering investigators to silence, reports of unexplained lights, conveniently losing parts of the file. That's not how you handle a hiking tragedy. That's how you handle something you don't want people asking questions about. My best guess? The hikers died because of an avalanche. But the government, embarrassed by the proximity to military tests and perhaps aware of radiation contamination from Kishtim, buried the truth under 30 years of classification. Not because they killed 9 students, but because they had a lot of other secrets to protect in that mountain range. 9 people went up that mountain with cameras, food, vodka, and laughter, and didn't come back down. Whatever the full truth is, They deserved better than a classified file and a compelling natural force. That's the Dyatlov Pass Incident, one of the most debated mysteries in modern history, and 65 years later, the debate is still alive. I want to know what you think. Do you believe the avalanche theory closes the book? Or do you think there's something the Russian government is still hiding? Drop your theory in the comments. If this is the first episode of the Obscured Past you've watched, welcome. We cover the history that doesn't make it into textbooks, the cases that get closed too quickly, the events that get forgotten, buried, or deliberately erased. Subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Next time on the Obscured Past, we're going to talk about Operation Paperclip, the declassified American government program that secretly recruited over 1,600 Nazi scientists after World War II, and gave some of them new names, new lives, and access to America's most sensitive military programs. That story is coming very soon. Until then, stay curious and question everything.